One of the most profound principles emphasized by Judaism, particularly the mystical teachings of Kabbalah, is the recognition of a person's abilities, strengths, and potential. These are gifts from the Creator, enabling us to push forward, act, help ourselves, and even impact the world. The key is to believe and know that these abilities are within us. This concept manifests both in the physical, natural, and psychological realm, as well as in the spiritual realm, where one receives divine assistance. Let's start with a simple example. Imagine someone participating in a running competition. If they convince themselves beforehand, I have no chance of finishing among the top, is there any possibility they'll achieve a top spot? Of course not. The body will respond accordingly, and the legs will not perform at their best. Contrast this with a story that made headlines a few years ago about a 12-year-old boy found alive under the rubble of a collapsed building after several days. A beam had fallen diagonally, shielding him. When asked how he managed to survive, he said, "My dad always told me, no matter what happens or where you are, I will do everything to get to you and help you." That belief echoed in his mind, giving him the strength to endure. When a person believes in their capabilities, in their tools, in their success, they can achieve extraordinary results. Every morning in Jewish tradition, there's a well-known practice. Upon waking, even before sitting up in bed, one recites the prayer, Modeh Ani. It reads, "I thank you, living and eternal King, for restoring my soul to me with compassion. Great is your faithfulness." The opening words are clear. A person wakes up feeling as though they've been dead, unconscious, disconnected from the world. Kabbalists explain that part of the soul leaves during sleep, as sleep is 1/60th of death. Upon waking, we express gratitude for the return of the soul. But the ending is intriguing. Great is your faithfulness. Shouldn't it say, "Great is my faith in you"? Why does the prayer refer to God's faithfulness? One interpretation is that it reflects dual meaning. Great is my faith in you. But there's also a profound message here. It's not just that we believe in God, it's that God believes in us. Every morning, by restoring our souls, the Creator is essentially saying, "I trust you. I have faith in your abilities, in your strengths, in your capacity to accomplish and make a difference." A story from a medical conference in the United States highlights this beautifully. A professor gave a detailed lecture on brain function and the effects of sleep, concluding with a warning. Upon waking, even when in a rush, one should never jump up or move too quickly. It's dangerous. The transition from lying down to movement requires care, as blood flow needs time to adjust, or it could lead to severe consequences. At this point, a Jewish student stood up and addressed the professor. In Judaism, we've always been taught to recite the prayer Modeh Ani upon waking, before sitting up. This prayer contains exactly 12 words, allowing for a calm transition of at least 12 seconds before moving. The hall erupted in applause, amazed at this wisdom. While Modeh Ani expresses gratitude to God, there's a broader principle taught by the Ramban, Nachmanides. Every commandment in the Torah benefits not only the soul in the world to come, but also our physical and mental well-being in this world. There are things science takes years to uncover and connections we might never anticipate. But the foundation is clear. If the Creator guides us to a certain path, it is for our ultimate good, both in this world and the next. When a person has faith in themselves and recognizes that God also believes in them, they unlock their true potential. There's a parable often shared about an eagle's egg that rolled into a chicken coop. The egg hatched, and the eaglet grew up among the chicks, behaving like them, pecking at the ground and living a simple life. As the eagle matured, it believed it was a chicken and mimicked their ways. One day, a wise old eagle flying overhead noticed the young eagle among the chickens. Puzzled, he thought, "What is an eagle doing in a chicken coop?" He waited for an opportunity when the chickens were pecking near the edge of a cliff. The old eagle swooped down and pushed the young eagle off the edge. Terrified and convinced it was falling to its death, the young eagle suddenly spread its wings and discovered its true nature. It soared high into the sky, realizing it wasn't meant to live like a chicken, but was destined to reach great heights. The moral is clear. Sometimes people underestimate themselves, believing they are insignificant or ordinary. At times, God pushes us out of our comfort zone. While it may feel like being thrown into the abyss, it's a nudge to spread our wings and realize our potential. After the Holocaust, a remarkable story emerged about a Jewish orphan boy. His entire family had perished during the war, and like many other survivors, he arrived in the US with nothing, not even the ability to read or write. While other children attended school, he had been running and hiding to survive. Near the age of his bar mitzvah, he found himself homeless in New York City, sleeping on benches and selling newspapers to earn a meager living. A synagogue caretaker learned about the boy and invited him to the synagogue. Winters in New York can be brutal, and the caretaker offered him a small room to stay warm. In exchange, the boy helped clean, arrange books, and maintain the synagogue. Despite being illiterate, he had a sharp mind and managed everything with remarkable intelligence. Over the years, he married and started a family. He ran the synagogue's operations smoothly, relying on his photographic memory to recall donations, names, and amounts. However, as technology advanced, the synagogue board informed him that he needed to learn to read and write to keep his job, as they were transitioning to computerized systems. When he refused, citing his age and the difficulty of learning, they had no choice but to let him go, offering severance pay as compensation. Distraught and angry, he questioned how God could let this happen. He had served faithfully for so many years. How could this be fair? Every rabbi he spoke to tried to comfort him, saying, "Everything God does is for the best," but he struggled to see the good in his situation. With no other option, he used his severance pay to start a small business, selling items others hadn't thought of. His business thrived, leading to the opening of more stores. Over time, he expanded into a nationwide chain, eventually investing in real estate during a booming market. Buying properties at low prices and selling them for high returns, he became a billionaire. One day, he sat in his Manhattan skyscraper, finalizing a multi-million-dollar real estate deal. As the lawyers prepared the contracts, the seller signed with an elegant gold pen and handed it to him. Instead of signing, he pulled out a small gold ink pad, dipped his thumb in the ink, and stamped his thumbprint as his signature. The seller, astonished, asked, "You're a billionaire and you don't know how to read or write?" The man smiled and replied, "If I had learned to read and write, I would still be cleaning synagogues. It's because I didn't know how to read that I've reached where I am today." At that moment, he realized the profound kindness God had shown him by pushing him out of his comfort zone. Losing his job, though painful at the time, had been the catalyst for his extraordinary success. Sometimes the challenges we face are the very things that enable us to soar. Even when the path seems uncertain or unfair, it's often leading us to heights we could never have imagined. God loves you and wants you to grow, but you're stuck in the same place. You've devoted decades of your life to serving God, and He wanted to advance you. What seemed like a fall into the abyss was actually designed to help you spread your wings, discover your talents and strength, and rise to new heights. The greatness of a person is not measured by their success at the end of the journey when they can look back and see how everything worked out for the best. True greatness is in having faith while still in the tunnel, unable to see the light at the end, and believing nonetheless. This is the message of Rabbi Emunah. Great is your faith. It's a twofold faith. I believe in you, and you believe in me. The sages teach us that everything God does is ultimately for our good. Some people may realize this during their lifetime, while others will only see it in the world to come. But it requires faith in our ability to persevere, knowing that God will never give us a challenge we can't handle. This principle should always give us strength. There are moments in life when a person feels completely broken, as if all hope is lost, and they've hit rock bottom. Even in those times, the sages teach, even if a sharp sword rests upon a person's neck, they should not despair of God's mercy. One must pray, hope for the best, and trust that a way forward is possible. When a person leans on God, cast your burden upon the Lord, they receive siyata d'shmaya, divine assistance. This not only provides spiritual support, but also has a psychological effect. When someone believes they can overcome their situation and trusts that everything happens for a reason, their mind becomes sharper, their decisions more effective, and their efforts more focused. Even in moments of difficulty, whether it's struggles in relationships, financial challenges, or personal setbacks, one must think, perhaps God is elevating me to a higher level. For instance, if a person faces delays in finding a partner, it could be that God is preparing them for a relationship rooted in deeper spiritual values, such as building a home that observes Shabbat, studies Torah, and is filled with holiness. If someone is fired from a job, it could be the gateway to a better opportunity they haven't yet imagined. Sometimes hardships come to protect us from even greater tragedies. For example, a financial loss might take the place of a severe accident, sparing someone's life or health. At the moment, we don't see the full picture, but we must trust that God's plans are always for the best. This faith, that everything is for the good, empowers a person to rise above challenges, seek solutions, and ultimately discover the blessings hidden within life's trials. Here's a story that's been shared in the US, dating back about 80 years. At that time, it was common for individuals to own private banks. Unlike today's corporate banking networks, some people owned and managed small private banks entirely by themselves. One such banker, a financially stable man, faced a crisis when a customer requested a large withdrawal. Although the banker had the funds to cover the request, he hesitated, worried it might destabilize his bank. To buy time, he asked the customer to wait a few weeks. The customer, however, grew suspicious. Fearing the bank was in trouble, he approached journalists, who launched an investigation. Without the banker's knowledge, they questioned others, sent undercover agents, and discovered his reluctance to pay immediately. A story was published, claiming the bank was on the verge of collapse. Though untrue, the rumor spread quickly, causing a panic. Customers rushed to withdraw their money, shares in the bank plummeted, and lawsuits began pouring in. Sitting in his office one day, surrounded by piles of letters and demands, the banker felt utterly defeated. He knew that declaring bankruptcy would mean giving up his luxurious lifestyle, leaving his grand villa for a modest 3-room apartment in a shared building. Overwhelmed, he began drafting a bankruptcy declaration to submit to his attorney. Feeling suffocated, he decided to step outside for fresh air. Near the bank was a small park with a playground and benches. He sat on one of the benches, buried his head in his hands, and sank into despair. Suddenly, he heard a kind voice ask, "Why do you look so down?" Looking up, he saw an elderly man, dressed in an old-fashioned suit, clearly someone who took pride in his appearance. Despite his sadness, the banker felt an urge to share his troubles. He explained, "I'm the manager of the bank nearby. A false story was published about me. Lawsuits are piling up, and I don't think I can recover. I've started drafting my bankruptcy declaration." The elderly man listened attentively and then asked, "Have you heard of John Rockefeller?" The banker replied, "You mean the billionaire?" The man smiled and said, "Yes, that's me." Startled, the banker couldn't believe his luck. A meeting with Rockefeller would normally take months to arrange, yet here he was, sitting on a park bench with him. The elderly man said, "I see you're being honest, and I want to help. If I lend you money for 1 year, how much would you need to get back on your feet?" The banker hesitated, but then named a large sum, $500,000, an enormous amount at the time. Without hesitation, Rockefeller pulled out a checkbook, wrote a check for $500,000, signed it boldly, and handed it to him. "Meet me here in 1 year and return the money," he said, before walking away briskly. The banker was stunned. He returned to his office, locked the check in his safe, and felt a newfound energy. He organized his debts, reached out to creditors, and assured them their money was secure. Soon, a new article was published, declaring that the bank had regained financial stability. With the panic subsiding, investors rushed to buy shares, driving up their value. Within a short time, the banker's wealth tripled, and he had restored his reputation. Yet, the check from Rockefeller remained untouched in his safe. A year later, the banker returned to the same bench, clutching the check, eager to thank Rockefeller for saving his life. As he waited, he spotted the elderly man walking in the park. The banker jumped up, ran toward him, and exclaimed, "Sir, you saved my life. I didn't even use the check, but knowing it was there gave me the strength to rebuild everything." Before he could say more, a nurse approached and gently said, "Oh, there you are. Break time is over. It's time to return to the hospital." Turning to the banker, she added, "Did he tell you he's John Rockefeller? He's one of our patients and often imagines he's Rockefeller, handing out checks to everyone." The banker was stunned. The check was worthless. The man wasn't Rockefeller. Yet as he walked back to his office, he realized something profound. It wasn't the check that saved him. It was his belief that he could overcome his challenges. As long as he had been consumed by despair, he couldn't see any light or solutions. But the moment he believed in himself, everything changed. Even a meaningless piece of paper gave him the confidence to take action. The lesson is clear. When a person has faith in themselves, in their abilities, and in the possibility of a better future, they can achieve greatness. King Solomon says, "That which I feared has come upon me." When a person fears something, it often happens. Why? One explanation is psychological. Fear creates stress, which can influence outcomes. But the Maharal of Prague offers a deeper spiritual perspective. Every person must trust in God, knowing that He loves, watches over, and provides for them. When someone fears things they shouldn't fear, other people, situations, or outcomes, they create a crack in the divine protection surrounding them. As long as a person relies on God, they are enveloped in an impenetrable shield of protection. But when they place their fear elsewhere, it's as if they are telling God, "I don't trust you enough." This lack of trust creates a breach in their spiritual defense, allowing the very thing they fear to penetrate and harm them. The Maharal emphasizes that all fear should be directed only toward God, not fear of punishment, but awe of His greatness and love. Recognizing God's care and guidance instills trust that everything, even challenges, is for the best. There is a principle: he who fears one, fears no one. A person should fear only God, the Creator of all. King Solomon also teaches the importance of action, alongside faith and thought. In Proverbs 12:2, he says, "A good man obtains favor from the Lord, but a man of wicked schemes is condemned." What does this mean? Solomon explains that a good man, someone who performs good deeds, finds favor in God's eyes. God blesses them with abundance and success because their actions align with goodness. The Netziv of Volozhin elaborates on this concept, drawing from the verse, "Behold, a ladder stood on the earth, and its top reached the heavens." Genesis 28:12. According to the Zohar, This ladder represents the human soul. The body is merely a vessel, while the soul operates on a higher spiritual plane. Every action performed by a person resonates in the spiritual realms, influencing the flow of blessings into the world. This is true not only on a personal level, but also for the entire community. For example, when one Jew strengthens their observance of Shabbat or modesty, it doesn't just benefit them, it tips the scales of merit for all of Israel. Conversely, negative actions add weight to the side of guilt. This is why the Rambam teaches that every person should see themselves and the world as balanced on a scale, with each deed potentially tipping it for better or worse. Our good deeds, such as giving charity, observing commandments, or studying Torah, can protect soldiers on the battlefield, prevent accidents, and bring economic prosperity to the nation. They can even diminish antisemitism worldwide. This is the meaning of a good man obtains favor from the Lord. A person who acts with goodness draws divine favor and blessings. However, Solomon contrasts this with the man of wicked schemes. Such a person is defined by constant negative thoughts, plotting harm, pursuing forbidden desires, or seeking ways to indulge in wrongdoing. The Vilna Gaon explains that the phrase "is condemned" has two meanings. The person condemns themselves. If someone consistently entertains negative thoughts, it eventually leads to negative actions, making them a sinner. God condemns them. When judgment comes, God will not judge such a person favorably. On the other hand, if a person strives to do good but occasionally falters, God treats them with mercy, understanding their struggles and imperfections. God looks favorably upon those who regret their mistakes and strive to improve. But someone defined by wickedness, whose very essence is negativity, will eventually face the consequences, both in their actions and in divine judgment. The message is clear. Our thoughts and actions hold immense power. Trusting in God and focusing on good deeds not only benefits us personally, but also uplifts the entire world. It brings blessings, protection, and abundance, fulfilling God's ultimate desire to bestow good upon His creation. Many people struggle with negative or inappropriate thoughts that arise in their minds, especially if they have been exposed to harmful content in the past, such as inappropriate movies or other negative influences. Often, young individuals express frustration saying, "I fight these thoughts, but they just won't go away." It's important to understand that thoughts are not involuntary bodily functions, like saliva secretion when eating. Unlike that, thoughts are under a person's control. However, when someone tries to fight unwanted thoughts directly, it can sometimes reinforce them instead of eliminating them. When a negative thought arises, the key is not to fight it, but to redirect your focus to something else. For example, instead of saying, "I don't want to think about this," replace the thought with a positive or neutral one. To make this easier, prepare in advance a library of good and constructive thoughts. These could include plans for meaningful activities or acts of kindness, Torah study or reflections on a verse with deep meaning, or recalling laws or lessons you have learned and wish to review. When an unwanted thought appears, shift to thinking about these prepared topics. If concentrating on these feels difficult, start with simpler distractions. For instance, mentally calculate something like, "What is 17 multiplied by 3? Initially, the mind may bounce back and forth, but with persistence, you'll regain focus. For those who are quicker at mental math, choose more complex problems, such as, "What is 359 multiplied by 57? This approach trains the brain to leave behind negative patterns and build new, positive ones. A deeper solution lies in aligning oneself with spiritual teachings. The Midrash explains that everything in creation mirrors a spiritual reality. For instance, water represents Torah, Just as water naturally flows to the lowest point, Torah only resides with those who are humble and open-hearted. This is why the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, a relatively low mountain, symbolizing humility. Water is refreshing and cleansing, much like the study of Torah, which rejuvenates the soul. Moreover, water's properties, its adaptability, purity, and ability to sustain life, reflect the profound influence of Torah on a person's character and spirit. In contrast, the evil inclination is likened to oil, which stains clothes. Sins similarly leave marks on the soul. These stains can only be cleansed through repentance or enduring challenges that atone for the misdeeds. Prepare positive thoughts, redirect instead of fighting, embrace humility and Torah study, and persist. Initially, the mind may resist, but consistent effort will bring results. Over time, the brain will associate unwanted thoughts with a switch to something better. By practicing these techniques, the grip of negative thoughts will weaken, and the mind will find peace and clarity. The journey takes effort, but it's entirely within one's power to control and shape their thoughts. The evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, is compared to oil, while Torah is compared to water. While oil can symbolize positive things in certain contexts, in this analogy, it represents the Yetzer Hara. The sages in the Midrash over 2,000 years ago offered a powerful metaphor. Take a cup filled to the brim with oil, so full that no additional drop of oil can fit. Now pour a drop of water into the cup. What happens? Common sense might suggest that the water would overflow, but in reality, the water is heavier than oil, so it sinks to the bottom, displacing a drop of oil instead. For every drop of water added, a drop of oil is pushed out. If you keep adding drops of water, eventually the cup will be entirely filled with water and all the oil will be expelled. The sages explain that a person who feels their mind is full of oil, overwhelmed by the Yetzer Hara, negative influences or harmful thoughts, shouldn't focus on removing the oil directly. Instead, they should pour water, Torah, into their mind. Every bit of Torah, whether it's study of halacha, Talmud, or ethical teachings, displaces a corresponding amount of the Yetzer Hara. Over time, as more Torah is learned and internalized, the mind becomes pure and holy, filled entirely with water, leaving no room for the Yetzer Hara to remain. An example from our generation is Rabbi Uri Zohar. For those who remember his youth, he was spiritually far from Torah and tradition, embodying a lifestyle that introduced secular influences into Israeli society. However, when he returned to a Torah-observant life, he dedicated himself to studying Torah from morning until night. He completed the study of the Talmud multiple times, delved into Torah commentaries, and even reached the study of Kabbalah. Few know that by the end of his life, when he passed away in his 80s, he was an exceptional Torah scholar, respected by leading rabbinic figures. Where did he start? At age 40, like Rabbi Akiva, he discovered his Creator and began his journey of repentance, eventually reaching great spiritual heights. When he left this world, his mind was pure, clear, and sanctified, thanks to the Torah he had filled it with. This is a lesson for everyone. The younger a person starts this process, the easier it is to refine oneself, to rise and to elevate their spiritual state. As King Solomon teaches in Proverbs, goodness brings favor from God. When one's thoughts and actions are aligned with goodness, they bring divine favor upon themselves and the world. Conversely, a person with wicked schemes will face ruin. Negative thoughts lead to destructive outcomes, both for the individual and their surroundings. Solomon continues, a person cannot be established through wickedness. While someone acting wickedly might achieve temporary success or impress others, it will not endure. However, the root of the righteous will never falter. Like a tree with deep roots that slowly penetrate the soil, the righteous build a stable and enduring foundation. such a person remains unshaken, no matter what challenges arise. May this serve as an inspiration to strengthen ourselves in Torah and positive actions, and may we be blessed to lead lives filled with goodness, wisdom, and divine favor. Many people struggle with negative or inappropriate thoughts that arise in their minds, especially if they have been exposed to harmful content in the past, such as inappropriate movies or other negative influences. Often, young individuals express frustration saying, "I fight these thoughts, but they just won't go away." It's important to understand that thoughts are not involuntary bodily functions, like saliva secretion when eating. Unlike that, thoughts are under a person's control. However, when someone tries to fight unwanted thoughts directly, it can sometimes reinforce them instead of eliminating them. When a negative thought arises, the key is not to fight it, but to redirect your focus to something else. For example, instead of saying, "I don't want to think about this," replace the thought with a positive or neutral one. To make this easier, prepare in advance a library of good and constructive thoughts. These could include plans for meaningful activities or acts of kindness, Torah study or reflections on a verse with deep meaning, or recalling laws or lessons you have learned and wish to review. When an unwanted thought appears, shift to thinking about these prepared topics. If concentrating on these feels difficult, start with simpler distractions. For instance, mentally calculate something like, "What is 17 multiplied by 3? Initially, the mind may bounce back and forth, but with persistence, you'll regain focus. For those who are quicker at mental math, choose more complex problems, such as, "What is 359 multiplied by 57? This approach trains the brain to leave behind negative patterns and build new, positive ones. A deeper solution lies in aligning oneself with spiritual teachings. The Midrash explains that everything in creation mirrors a spiritual reality. For instance, water represents Torah. Just as water naturally flows to the lowest point, Torah only resides with those who are humble and open-hearted. This is why the Torah was given on Mount Sinai, a relatively low mountain, symbolizing humility. Water is refreshing and cleansing, much like the study of Torah, which rejuvenates the soul. Moreover, water's properties, its adaptability, purity, and ability to sustain life, reflect the profound influence of Torah on a person's character and spirit. In contrast, the evil inclination is likened to oil, which stains clothes. Sins similarly leave marks on the soul. These stains can only be cleansed through repentance or enduring challenges that atone for the misdeeds. Prepare positive thoughts, redirect instead of fighting, embrace humility and Torah study, and persist. Initially, the mind may resist, but consistent effort will bring results. Over time, the brain will associate unwanted thoughts with a switch to something better. By practicing these techniques, the grip of negative thoughts will weaken, and the mind will find peace and clarity. The journey takes effort, but it's entirely within one's power to control and shape their thoughts. The evil inclination, Yetzer Hara, is compared to oil, while Torah is compared to water. While oil can symbolize positive things in certain contexts, in this analogy, it represents the Yetzer Hara. The sages in the Midrash over 2,000 years ago offered a powerful metaphor. Take a cup filled to the brim with oil, so full that no additional drop of oil can fit. Now pour a drop of water into the cup. What happens? Common sense might suggest that the water would overflow, but in reality, the water is heavier than oil, so it sinks to the bottom, displacing a drop of oil instead. For every drop of water added, a drop of oil is pushed out. If you keep adding drops of water, eventually the cup will be entirely filled with water and all the oil will be expelled. The sages explain that a person who feels their mind is full of oil, overwhelmed by the Yetzer Hara, negative influences or harmful thoughts, shouldn't focus on removing the oil directly. Instead, they should pour water, Torah, into their mind. Every bit of Torah, whether it's study of halacha, Talmud, or ethical teachings, displaces a corresponding amount of the Yetzer Hara. Over time, as more Torah is learned and internalized, the mind becomes pure and holy, filled entirely with water, leaving no room for the Yetzer Hara to remain. An example from our generation is Rabbi Uri Zohar. For those who remember his youth, he was spiritually far from Torah and tradition, embodying a lifestyle that introduced secular influences into Israeli society. However, when he returned to a Torah-observant life, he dedicated himself to studying Torah from morning until night. He completed the study of the Talmud multiple times, delved into Torah commentaries, and even reached the study of Kabbalah. Few know that by the end of his life, when he passed away in his 80s, he was an exceptional Torah scholar, respected by leading rabbinic figures. Where did he start? At age 40, like Rabbi Akiva, he discovered his Creator and began his journey of repentance, eventually reaching great spiritual heights. When he left this world, his mind was pure, clear, and sanctified, thanks to the Torah he had filled it with. This is a lesson for everyone. The younger a person starts this process, the easier it is to refine oneself, to rise and to elevate their spiritual state. As King Solomon teaches in Proverbs, goodness brings favor from God. When one's thoughts and actions are aligned with goodness, they bring divine favor upon themselves and the world. Conversely, a person with wicked schemes will face ruin. Negative thoughts lead to destructive outcomes, both for the individual and their surroundings. Solomon continues, a person cannot be established through wickedness. While someone acting wickedly might achieve temporary success or impress others, it will not endure. However, the root of the righteous will never falter. Like a tree with deep roots that slowly penetrate the soil, the righteous build a stable and enduring foundation. Such a person remains unshaken, no matter what challenges arise. May this serve as an inspiration to strengthen ourselves in Torah and positive actions, and may we be blessed to lead lives filled with goodness, wisdom, and divine favor.